The boarding pass in my hand cost more than my entire semester of textbooks, but the woman behind the counter looked at me like I was trying to sneak into somewhere I didn't belong. And in that moment, standing under harsh airport lights with my backpack digging into my shoulders, I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, that quiet voice saying, "Here we go again." You know the feeling, when someone decides who you are before you even open your mouth. This was supposed to be a normal morning, just another flight home, but it turned into the day everything finally snapped into focus. It was early November, one of those gray, damp mornings where the city feels tired before it even wakes up. I was 19, a first-generation college kid running on caffeine and hope wearing a hoodie that had seen better days. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed money. Inside my pocket, though, was something that didn't match the rest of me at all. A first-class boarding pass. A gift. A surprise from my aunt, the woman who stepped in and raised me when life took a hard left turn. She told me over the phone, half laughing, half serious, "You've worked too hard to keep shrinking yourself. Sit up front for once." I didn't feel like I deserved it, but I trusted her. The economy line was a mess, families arguing, kids crying, everyone already stressed. The priority lane, though, was quiet and polished like a different universe. I hesitated before stepping into it, feeling that imposter syndrome creep up my spine. But I took a breath and walked forward anyway. That's when I saw her. Perfect hair, stiff posture, name badge shining. She wasn't smiling, she was assessing. And when her eyes landed on me, they narrowed just enough to let me know this wasn't going to be easy. She didn't greet me, didn't ask where I was headed. She just pointed and said, "Economy is over there." Not loud, not rude on paper, just dismissive enough to sting. I told her calmly that I was checking in for my flight and slid my boarding pass across the counter. She barely glanced at it before letting out a sharp laugh, asking if I'd printed it myself, telling me she didn't have time for jokes or social media stunts. People like me apparently didn't just end up in first class by accident. I tried to keep my voice steady even as my face burned. I asked her to scan the ticket. That was it. Just scan it. If it was fake, I'd leave. Simple. But that request flipped a switch. Her tone hardened. She leaned forward, perfume-heavy, telling me that this lane was for real customers, not kids chasing attention. Behind me, I could feel eyes starting to linger. That familiar pressure. Don't cry. Don't give her that. When I didn't move, she called for security, saying I was being aggressive. Aggressive. Me standing there holding a piece of paper. My heart started pounding, but I stood my ground and placed the ticket on the counter again, saying my name out loud like it mattered. She picked it up, crumpled it, and tossed it into the trash without hesitation. Like it was garbage. Like I was. That's when my hands started shaking. I reached for my phone to pull up the digital copy and dropped it. The sound of it cracking on the floor felt like the last thread snapping. She shouted that I was attacking her, stepping back dramatically, calling for help. 2 security guards showed up fast. Big guys with tired faces, and before I could explain anything, one of them grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back. I cried out, telling them they were hurting me, but the woman behind the counter just crossed her arms and watched. "Remove her," she said, like she was ordering coffee. People were filming. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked entertained. I felt small, exposed, humiliated, being dragged across that polished floor while my whole world narrowed down to one thought. How did it get this far? And then everything stopped. A voice cut through the noise, calm and unshakable. "Let her go." It didn't come from the crowd. It came from the entrance. The guards froze. The woman behind the counter turned annoyed at first, then pale. Walking toward us was my aunt. Tailored coat, confident stride, flanked by people who clearly weren't there to mess around. She took off her sunglasses, and when our eyes met, I lost it. Relief hit me so hard my knees almost buckled. She didn't yell. She didn't insult anyone. She just told the guard to release me now, and he did. Immediately. I stepped into her arms, shaking, trying to hold it together while she wrapped me up like she always had, like she always would. Then she turned back to the counter and the air shifted. The woman tried to explain, tried to backpedal, saying she didn't know that it was a misunderstanding. My aunt's voice stayed steady as she listed exactly what she'd done, throwing away a valid ticket accusing me of drugs, ordering physical removal. She made one phone call, put it on speaker, asked for Operations Legal Airport Police. Within minutes, the area was swarming. Witnesses stepped forward. Videos appeared. Someone pulled my crumpled boarding pass out of the trash. The story unraveled fast, and it wasn't pretty. Turns out this wasn't new behavior. Co-workers admitted she profiled passengers denied boarding based on appearance, took bribes. She'd been running that counter like her own little kingdom for years. By the time she was escorted away, her face was gray, her authority gone. My aunt stood in front of the cameras later that day and said what happened wasn't just unacceptable, it was criminal. She promised investigations, firings, changes. And she meant it. Lawsuits followed. Charges stuck. The woman who thought she was untouchable lost her job, her reputation, and eventually her freedom. Months later, sitting in a courtroom, I watched her stand in front of a judge with none of that old confidence left. The verdict came back guilty. Multiple counts. The sentence was real prison time. As she was led away, papers were handed to her lawyer, civil suits millions. She didn't look angry anymore, just empty. A year after that day, I walked into another airport, another terminal heart racing for just a second before I reminded myself I wasn't that scared kid anymore. The counters were open, the staff trained differently, the energy softer. An agent smiled at me, helped an elderly woman without judgment, treated everyone like they mattered. I stood there watching, realizing something bigger than me had shifted. And yeah, I still think about that moment sometimes, how close I came to shrinking back to letting someone decide my worth. But I didn't. And neither should you. Because dignity isn't something you earn with clothes or money. It's something everyone deserves. So here's my question for you. If you'd been standing there watching it happen, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up? Would you have filmed? Or would you have looked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments because these stories don't matter unless we talk about them. And if you've ever been judged, dismissed, or underestimated, this one's for you.